welcome to the Modern Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Giordani. Special guest today, Dan Fulkerson with Bada Fulkerson Law Group.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, dude.
Appreciate it.
Personal injury attorney, and you are like top rated in the country. Is that what I heard?
Bulldog attorney, licensed in California and Idaho. So we got an office in Boise, Idaho, and then take cases all up and down the coast. So I got stuff up in Humboldt and all the way down to the border here.
Love it, dude. And I think like the branding, obviously I'm driving down the freeway. I see the dog. Like it's hard not to just like, okay, I love dogs. Like this guy seems cool.
Who's got the crazy bulldog building?
Right.
Yeah, and it draws attention. When I was thinking about building out the building, like when you're a kid, you know, when you're driving, you associate buildings differently than you do when you're an adult, right? Like it's like shapes, things, colors. And I was like, I want this to be the building when kids are driving by, they're like, Mom, Dad, that's the dog building, the bulldog building. And that's how it came to life.
And you have like a dog, I just saw a story. You have a dog park across the street?
Dog park in the parking lot.
In your parking lot?
Yeah, we were like
rad.
20 days from being done with the building. They were coming in to do landscaping, and I called my law partner and was like, hey, where you guys were going to put in a bunch of succulents, let's build a dog park. And now it's a dog park for the dogs.
Well, you bring all the dogs in, right? Because you rescue dogs too, is that?
Yeah, I got 6 bulldogs myself. 4 of them come to the office every single day, so they got a place to go, and now all the other attorneys bring their dogs, so they have to have a place to go. Right. So we got a dog park out front. Yeah.
So awesome. And you have a charity behind Bulldogs, several charities, one with Bulldogs specifically.
Yeah, I have, so I have 2 charities that I've started, Positive Movement, which I started with Gina Latina, Omid Sabat, and some other friends, and then I have my own Bulldog rescue called Save a Bully. So,
cool.
Yeah.
So how does it work with the Save a Bully? Is it strictly like a rescue? Like do you rescue them, or do people come in and like put their name on the list? And
French and English bulldogs, Humane Society, or dogs come from different places,
right.
But a lot of times Humane Society call, hey, we got another English in, another French in. Usually they need something medical, spay, neuter at the very least.
Right.
Most of them are breeder dogs that get ditched. He was a breeder dog. He was probably ditched when he was like 4 years old after he was used to breed and then couldn't be used anymore. They ditch him on the streets. Comes in to me, I get them all cleaned up, get them all medically good and stable, and then I find good homes for them. So that's
rad, dude.
It's like my passion project.
Well,
it's the best part of my life.
Yeah.
Like I found 3 homes last week. So I got 2 English homed and a Frenchie homed. Kevin Post, who has a moving company in town, picked up the Frenchie, and then 2 English went to great homes, and on to the next.
That would be so hard for me not to want to like to keep all the dogs that come in.
That's why I have 6.
Yeah. It would be so hard.
I'm at the city limit because that's where, it was. And Todd Gloria, the mayor of San Diego, was my neighbor for a while. And so he would like my fence and like count. And, bro, I got 6. I'm at the limit. So I keep it there because I don't want to get on radar. But
there's really a limit?
Yeah, 6.
Like wherever you live in San Diego, you can only have 6 dogs?
Dog limit. If it was 8, I'd have 8. Yeah. I mean,
no way. I never knew that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I had to do some research and look it up. But yeah, and then like I had my 18-year-old English pass, filled her in with a new one when I found the right one for the pack. And so I stayed at a 6 limit.
That's awesome, dude. That's like such a cool like passion project, like to be able to like fulfillment stuff.
100%.
I think like, especially like both of us industries, stuff like that, like you get to a point where you're like the money stuff doesn't really like it does in the beginning. And then like, all right, what do I do to like have my fulfillment?
Yep.
And like, I could like, that's amazing. I still
build
haven't found
your
that
life
yet.
around the shit you love. I give that advice to everyone. Like life is short. And when we're all old and decrepit and 90 years old laying on our deathbeds, you're not going to be looking at the ones and zeros on the screen. You're going to be thinking about how you lived. And 100%. So I try to like really be intentional about that. And I build the firm and all the things that I love around the things that I love.
That's great. Yeah. It doesn't feel like work because you go in,
rolling like this, J's and jeans and a black tee and with my dogs.
This is me every day too. My white Vans in a black t-shirt.
I realized a while ago that people are over facade, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm not a suit guy. It doesn't fit me. Like, it's just not how I roll. So I'm going to be genuine to myself. And it is something that, especially for clients and what I do, would deal with like people that are pretty jacked up, is they want real. And so it's worked for me.
Yeah. And you're in personal injury. So a lot of that is like very like sensitive topics, people hurt.
Life's turned upside down.
Yeah. And they want someone, I mean, I like personally, I would probably want someone who's more authentic. And now, even to this day, I don't necessarily feel like I get along with the people who are like suit and tie that I feel like aren't being authentic.
100%.
I know with me, when I got into the real estate industry when I was 18, and I felt like I had to wear a suit and tie.
Yep.
And it was like in my insecurities that came out, that I was like, I had to be older than what I was. I pretended to like wear fake glasses, like reading glasses, because I wanted people to think that I was smarter or more intelligent because I was 18 years old. And then finally I got to the point, I think like it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, where finally I was just like, it's jeans. It's like, maybe I'll wear like a sports coat or something over this. But other than that, like, that's as much dressed up as you'll see me unless I'm at a wedding.
You and I were on the exact same track, because I did the same shit early on and did the suit and tie for probably 6 years, and then got to a place where it was just like, this is not me. And it was an insecurity, right? Like, because it was like, oh, are people going to be okay with this? Like, is this going to fly? And you realize people want genuine. They want who you are. And once they see that, it's done.
I heard the story of you when I was watching the video that I told you that I watched a few times. And you talked about a guy that came in your office that his son referred him to you, and he did it out of courtesy. Yeah. And he's like, I'm not going to use you. I'm not going to use you. And you put your feet up, and you basically like just shot the shit with him for an hour.
That's all we did, yeah.
And then he's
we didn't talk about his case.
Where's the fucking paperwork?
Literally, like, and I was like, that was a moment of like, oh shit. This is what people are looking for. Right. They don't want salesy. They don't want like the fake bullshit. They want real people. And ever since then, I've just owned it and run at it really hard. And that's why like they come with me every day. And like clients, when they come into me, they're jacked up. Like, and they don't want to be in an attorney's office. They're insecure about being in an attorney's office. And then these guys roll out and they're like, oh, and you can watch it like that. Hard exterior just kind of crumbles, and we can have a real life conversation, and I can get to know them and what they've gone through, and I need to know that in order to be able to convey that to the insurance company and get the max amount for them. And it's helped so much in our company culture and just who we are that, I mean, I give a lot of credit to them, and that's why they're the mascots and they're on everything we do, and they're this big glow up bulldog on top of the building. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I could see like instant guard down. Right, with people who come in, they want to just basically tell you their life story. And I know, like when I go on appointments these days with like houses that I'm looking to buy, very sensitive situations. If I was to go there dressed up or in a different way, like I'm wearing my Vans, I'm wearing my T-shirt, and I'm wearing like my normal outfit, maybe not my Rolex, but
you gotta be a little careful.
Yeah, I gotta be a little careful.
Where we're at in the world right now.
Yeah. I have to be sensitive to their situation. So every time I feel like I'm casual and I'm just relating to them on situations that I've gone through, and with dogs and being casual and being who you are and wearing J's, right? Like that is authentic and it instantly takes the guard down.
I just think that so many people think that they have to sell, and it's like, that's not the way the world works. Like if you're trying to sell someone, you've missed the boat already, right? Like it's now like I've kind of gotten to the place where I'm like, I don't sell my services. I'm more on the other side of it where it's like, do I want to help you?
Right.
Like, are you a quality human being that is going to be appreciative and is going to, be a type of person that I want to have in my life for the next 6 months, year, or however long your case is going to go.
Sure.
So the tables have kind of turned where it's like, I don't ever feel like I need to sell anyone.
Right.
It's the opposite. And I think that that's a really good place to be in life.
Yeah. And I think with sales, especially, I'm going to pull this up because it was actually really good. I was watching this podcast. And this guy, he said something, and I was like, this is so true. Sales is the first conversation of helping someone. Yeah. And it's so true because you look at like the car salesman stuff. I remember back in the day when I first got into sales, it was like you had to like convince them to do something. Yeah. What people realize is you're not convincing them to do anything. You're just finding a solution to their problem.
100%.
And now, like I'm sure where you're at, like you don't need clients. Yeah. But if you want to help them, you want to be able to help them, that's a great solution to finding their problem.
Exactly right. Yeah. Like if you're a quality human and you've been in a bad situation, it's not about like I could walk away right now and go do something else with my life or go just rescue dogs for the rest of my life. I do it because I really enjoy what I do. Sure. Like I really do. It's something that makes me very happy and brings me fulfillment. But I don't want to deal with assholes, right? No. Like I just don't have time for it. Right. So it's just where I'm going to be me, and if it's a good fit, it's a good fit. And if it's not, it's not.
Yeah, and I think you realize, too, as you get older, I'm 34. You're under 40. Are you
38.
38.
I still feel like I'm like 26. It's fucking bizarre. Like I'm like waiting to feel my age, and I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Like how old do you actually feel right now?
In my 20s.
Like
in my 20s for sure.
My grandmother's 90, and I asked her this. I'm like, how old do you feel? And she's like, I don't know, like 65. And I think that's always going to be just the way that it is. Like, you're never going to actually feel how old you are.
Yeah, until you can stop like walking and shit. Like I think when you like,
it's probably true.
You know, like when you can't.
It's probably true. It's a little bit of a reminder.
Yeah. Like when my grandpa stopped being able to play golf, he's like, "Fuck, I'm getting old."
Yeah.
You know, like at that point, I think maybe I would.
The health stuff starts to get you. Yeah.
And then like some gray hairs and some wrinkles, but I'm like, oh, it builds character now. But then when it's like full gray, then I'm gonna be like, shit, maybe I'm
Bro,
getting
that
there.
Shit's coming. I look in the mirror, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. Yeah, but
my barber pulled one out of my beard today, and I was like, oh boy, it's coming.
But in the same sense, I'm like, as long as I still got my hair, I don't care. Like,
that's
as long
true.
as I still got it, it's good.
100%. Yeah, totally. I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
I don't even know. We're just talking.
I know that you read a lot.
I do.
And I wrote down a book, Life Matters. From a life of matter to a life that matters. So why did that book change your life? I know it was
it's
like
a weird ass story, man. This book like found me, like certain moments in life where you like, you know, that there's, you know, whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it life energy, whatever you know, say it is, but it was, I used to live in Doma in Little Italy. And, this book was sitting next to a trash can where someone like was throwing out their stuff, and there was a bunch of stuff and there was a bunch of books, and this book caught my eye. And I'm never one that's like going to stop and like look at books next to a trash can, but I did that day, and I picked this book up, and for whatever reason I took it back to my unit and I started reading it that night. And it's about a guy that he was the head executive for Live Nation, and a young guy in his 20s, and was making millions of dollars and celebrity friends and thought he had life by the balls. And then his mom died of cancer. And he had to find himself and figure out that all these things that he thought mattered really didn't matter and weren't fulfilling and didn't make him happy. And he went on a journey of really finding what was going to fulfill his soul. And I was at a place in life where I was driving a Ferrari and had other cars and felt like outside looking in, I had life by the balls. But I wasn't happy and I wasn't fulfilled, and I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And I read this book straight through in one night and had goosebumps the whole time. And then I'm done with the book, and I flip to the front cover, and it's signed by the author, Hugs. And I'm like, this fucking book found me. Like, it found me. And that book changed my life because it changed how I lived and what I was living for, and doing it for ego and doing it for the outside looking in, and really started to base it on like what's going to truly make my soul happy and what's going to fill me up inside. And I give that book out to, you know, a lot of people that are struggling and are going through shit in life, because I think so many people, especially in the society that we live in with social media and the keeping up with the Joneses and all those things, they're living for the wrong reasons. And that kind of stuff is never going to fully fulfill you. And I know so many really wealthy people that are miserable, and they're not happy because somewhere on that line of life, they sold their soul in what would make them happy for money. And I don't ever want to be that person. Like, I want to live for stuff that really, truly fills me up inside. And that book was just like a pivot point in my life.
Damn. How many years ago was that?
7 years ago now.
Okay. Were you married or kids or anything like that?
No, still not. Like, serious relationship. Like, never thought that I'd get married, have kids. That kind of changed in the last few years. Like, I realized that I want kids. I want a family. COVID, I think, kind of woke me up to that. I started having like dreams about it, and like, couldn't get away from it, and realized, you know, what is true legacy? Is legacy going to be, oh, that I've accumulated this wealth and properties, and, you know, that to me was what I thought it was about. And I realized that's probably not what it's going to be about at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I want to have a family. I want to have a kid, and I want to be able to pass on not money, but pass on how I believe you should live in life and just those things. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I've at. I've just changed a lot of the direction of my life pretty dramatically.
And now you have kids?
No, but you know, dating someone that does have kids and would like to have a kid if, you know, God willing. So yeah, I used it. I'm engaged. I just got engaged November. Congratulations.
Thank you. But for the longest time, we've been dating for like 6 years. For the longest time, I've used it as, both of us used it as a defense mechanism, like with going home and like, oh, like when you guys having kids and all this stuff. I used it as a defense mechanism to basically say like, oh, we're not going to have kids. Yeah. And I started believing it in my head. But like, other people around me, all my friends, like are all married, all with kids. And like when we go on vacations and the kids go, and I'm like Uncle Josh the whole time, right? The kids are like on me and I'm playing sports with them and all this stuff. And I'm like, every time I leave, I'm like, oh, that filled my heart. Like, why am I using it as a defense mechanism? And then 2 years ago, Whitney and I finally had the conversation. I was like, I think this is real. Like, I think I want kids and I want to make sure like we're on the same page. Cause at first I didn't think we were, because we both kept saying it. Yeah. And then, now obviously engaged, and like, I'm sure as soon as we get married, it's like, all right, let's see whatever we can do.
I think it's funny, like how like age kind of changes that on people, right? Like I just never thought that was me, and I never thought that would be something that I would want. As time went by, it just started to eat at me, and I was in a long-term relationship with someone that didn't want kids, and we talked about it like in full, like, nope, neither one of us. And the big reason why that relationship ended was because she doesn't want kids, and now I do, and that's not something you can like counsel through, change, right? So it just wasn't meant to be. And I just think you have to be true to yourself and self-analytical enough to be able to really break those things down, because you could have just kept going on that track of lying to yourself and then woke up at 50 years old on really missed out on something that would have been fulfilling in my life. And I watched an interview with David Letterman, and I can't remember, he was like 59. He was old when he had his first kid. And he said, he was like tears in his eyes. He was like, I'd give up every single thing that I've earned and owned to have an extra year with my kid. He was like, I did it way too. And that really hit me, where I was like, shit, this is a guy that has everything. And he's saying that like, that's the most important thing that he's done in his life. And he would sacrifice all of it just to have another year with his child. Right. And that's when I started thinking, I'm not going to be young forever. Like, and I don't want to be like the Robert De Niro dad at however old he is, 88, and just had a kid. Like, I'm not trying to do that. No. So,
Did you, we got a little deep on the last podcast. Did you have an interesting, like a different upbringing, like as a kid, like with your parents and stuff? Yeah.
Like a divorced family, dad worked all the time. Like, and I thought that and I didn't want to be that. Yeah. Like, and no disrespect to my dad, but like, I don't want to be that dad. And I thought like that was in me. I'm going to be a selfish dad. I'm going to be working way too much. I'm going to not be around. Like, and I didn't want to continue that. And that fucked with my head for a long time. And then had like realization of like, I'm going to be the opposite. Like I've seen all of the different types of dad. I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a very active dad. I'm going to be there at all the sport. Like I'm going to be in it. Right. And
you're going to do what he didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to just do it a different way. Yeah. And it was also like in your 20s, you're like, I would always tell everyone, all my friends that would get pregnant, I would be like, it costs $1 million to raise a kid. You know, like I would always be that guy. Yeah. And when you're broke, like it's scary because you're broke. You're trying to fend for yourself, much less for a kid. Yep. Thank God now I'm in a place where I'm financially stable and I'm not worried about money. And then it makes it a little bit more where it's like, okay, I can afford to hire more people and hire some more attorneys and take time off so I can come do stuff like this, so I can be there for my kids. So I'm going to be at all the game. Like now I'm at a place where I have that freedom, and 100%. That makes it too.
Yeah. My very similar upbringing. That's why I asked that question. Because as soon as you said like what in terms of like kids and not having, I had the same thing. And my dad was a workaholic. Yeah. My parents never married. My mom got remarried, then got a divorce. Now she's remarried again. Yep. He got divorced from my stepmom, and then now he's dating. But he was always a workaholic, and I love my dad to death. Yep. And I look up to him for a lot of those things. But I would definitely be a different dad.
Yeah, it's no disrespect.
No, it's just not.
You can look back now and see like, oh shit, there was some holes.
Yeah. And I definitely think he looks back. Like when we talk about like childhood stuff, he looks back and he regrets some of the stuff that he did, like having to, like the saying of like, be the one to provide the bacon. What's that saying? Yep. Which is true in a sense. Like I think the new day and age, like I think as men, we still do that, but we can do it on a different level. I think we're still being able to provide, but also being present.
For sure.
So,
I agree. Unfortunately, my dad and I aren't very close. I don't talk to him very often, and it's something I hope changes in his life, my life, but I haven't had a chance to have those conversations, right? And so I've just had to kind of internally break it down in my own self on what my childhood looked like, the things where I felt there was inadequacies, and how I want to do it differently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I think it will make you a better father because of those experiences that you went through.
I do too.
Like younger, especially like your love for dogs and animals. Like it's very similar, like
it 100%. I mean, these have been my kids, and
right.
like now dating someone with kids, like I love her kids.
Right.
Like I absolutely love. I look forward to I can't wait to get home.
Right.
To be able to be around her kids. So it's like I'm excited for it. Like I'm excited for that chapter.
What's next for Fulkerson, or what's next for like the projects that you're doing? I know you do. We just actually talked about real estate investing in Idaho.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of passive investing. I've started some non-passive projects in the past few years. Right before COVID, started a Poke place downtown, Poke Vita, and then COVID came and hit. And it was when East Village was like on the way up, and then now everyone knows East Village is just like Skid Row, it's crazy. And so have pivoted from that, turned it into a meal prep company, which is doing well. Did some passive investing in like Spill the Beans coffee shops, which are downtown in Seaport Village, now opening up in OB and in Mission Valley. Ended up buying a coffee roasting company to be able to supply the beans to Spill the Beans. So have done some passive and non-passive. I've gotten to a place in life where I realize like the non-passive stuff is not as much my interest because it eats so much of my time.
Of course.
I'd rather just now focus into building Fulkerson into as strong of a monster as I possibly can. And so I'm mostly doing passive investing right now. But yeah, restaurants, real estate stuff, whether it's single families, some multifamilies, and then I did when the wild west of marijuana stuff came into town, I was picking up licenses and lawyering my way through licenses and just getting the piece of paper and slinging the piece of paper.
Selling it, yeah.
Yeah. So,
interesting. That's cool.
That was a great game. It's gone now, but it was, for a few years, it was,
right. I mean, with your business, it's like you got where you're at, it's a totally different game where passive, you can only really do passive. I'm sure with how busy you are already, like there's no way for you to go and start actively like flipping houses or like trying to go and buy a ton of rentals that you would manage yourself or anything. Like you're just in a different place in your life.
Well,
right?
It goes back to us being our dads. Like, what am I going to add more and more and more and more onto my plate to the point where it's like, okay, well then I'm working 8 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
Like I can do a solid 50 at the law firm, but then I was adding on another 30 from other stuff, and then I'm looking at it going like, where's my life going to be, right? Like, and so now I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have a kid in the next couple of years, I need to be able to buy back my freedom.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, how many more attorneys do I need to hire? What infrastructure do I need to put in place? What systems and processes do I need to put in place? What do I really need to focus on that I'm going to really add value in my business that is where I should spend my time so I can be a true 9-to-5er, right? And it can still run, it can still do great, we can still get the amazing results we always have, but that I'm not giving it my whole life.
Your life, yeah.
And so that's where I'm at, is like trying to buy back freedom at this point in time.
So with expanding in other states and stuff like that, are you doing that right now as well?
Yeah, so I took the Idaho bar, and I took it for a funny reason. Like I'm from Idaho, so I have my mom's there, my sisters are there, so it's great because I get to go back and see the family, right? So I took it because during the whole lockdown stuff and the craziness of those 2 years, I was worried. And there was a time they were talking about mandating certain things on employees, right? In California. Yeah. And I had 2 key critical pieces in my company that are literally like good friends of mine, but wouldn't want to run my company without them. They were like, if it's mandated, we're moving out of California and we're doing it. And I couldn't lose them. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's my workaround? Take the bar in Idaho, start an Idaho law firm, start an Idaho business, hire you through my Idaho business. You're not California employees anymore. California, say whatever you want. They're Idaho employees. They may work remotely, but they're Idaho employees. So that's why I did it. And then just the way the world works, it got super busy. And we started to get all these clients. And I haven't advertised at all. And clients just started coming in. And so the firm in Idaho has been very successful and very busy. And so now it's kind of figuring out where that goes. Do I hire more staff there? Can I run it out of here? Like it's figuring it out.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. You just take action. You figure it out on the way. I think that's any entrepreneur.
Yeah. I've always been a head on the swivel type of guy. Like I did my MBA at the same time as I did my law degree. And I think that the business background is probably as important, if not more important than my law background. And so I enjoy those type of problems. Like I look forward to those type of problems.
For sure. Yeah. I think jumping in head first and thinking later is the best way.
Everything that I've ever done that I've been successful at is just start.
Yeah.
Just go. So many people just, I got to think about planning it the right way, and and they never start.
It's analysis
just
process.
Go.
Yeah.
Momentum's a funny thing in life. Like it will get behind you if you just start.
Yeah. Did you ever have a mentor?
Several. Mostly business mentors,
Yeah.
and then like in the last probably 7 or 8 years, attorney mentor. Robert Humparian is probably the best trial attorney that I've ever met, and he's definitely probably the lawyer mentor that I've had in life. But several business mentors, several life mentors that have taken me under their wing and just kind of like shown me the way and kicked me in my teeth when I need to get kicked in my teeth. And I think that's like the biggest thing for me is like, I need someone to be blunt with me.
Totally.
Like, you're fucking up.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the way to do it, and you need to check yourself.
Yeah.
And so I've been lucky enough to have those type of people in my life that have checked me in the right times.
It's awesome. Yeah. Were they in like the beginning of your career or like throughout the process? Because I know like for me, like in the beginning of my like investing journey, I absolutely have like a mentor that's basically taught me everything, where I cut the learning curve probably by 10 years.
It's amazing.
And if I didn't have him, even like splitting profits and all that stuff, it's worth the millions of dollars that we've split together.
For sure.
Right. Or whatever,
just to
learn, because it's cut down all that time and experience from me, making mistakes that probably would have costed me a lot of money that I couldn't afford to lose in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where now I can, but
Yeah, I would say I had a couple business mentors in the beginning, but it's also like why I've passively invested in some projects, because I'm like, I'm going to throw you some money. I know you're going to make money, but I'm also going to learn from you watching. Right? Like, include me on the emails. Include me in the calls.
Yep.
Like, I might not have a huge stake in it, but I want to learn.
Yeah.
And I've always just been, I think that's why I read a lot. I've always just wanted to learn and been fascinated by the process. And so I've looked to projects and invested in projects. For example, the stuff we were doing when I was getting cannabis licenses, how it worked out was when that was coming into town, I was watching the way that people were doing the game, right? And people were going out and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and renting big warehouses and big, properly zoned facilities, right? And then rolling the dice after they're signing a 5-year lease and paying rent on this 5-year lease to go through the lottery system that it is and trying to get stuff. And people were losing their ass, right? And I'm just like, no, not going to play it that way.
Right.
So I started doing some research and was like, what are the zones? Okay. Mostly like warehouse, industrial, auto bodies.
Right.
I'm a personal injury attorney. I deal with auto bodies all the time.
Right.
What are the biggest auto body shops? Oh, Caliber Collisions. They're everywhere. Who owns Caliber Collisions? Looked it up. They're not owned by Caliber. They're owned by a family. Family actually has their own auto body shop, one body shop, and then they rent all of their other properties to Caliber Collisions. Went to them. Hey, this is what I do. I'm a lawyer. I have an idea. Let me use your real estate that you own. Let me try to get licenses on it. We'll go 50s. I'm not paying you $1 in rent, so I don't have a risk in the game there. If we get the licenses, we'll sell the licenses. You guys are going to make money as the landlord on the back end. You'll be able to make way more money than you are to Caliber Collisions, and I get mine on the sale. Like, that's a no-brainer to us. It was a father and son. Son happened to be my age, one of my really good friends now, and that's how we rolled it. And so I only had risk in the permitting process, which was whatever. Like, considering the upside, that was well worth my risk. Right. But I wasn't laying my ass on the line where I was going to lose a ton of money if it didn't go through.
Oh, dude, signing a 5-year lease, that sounds ridiculous.
Bro, people were hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's just crazy. And so we got 4 licenses that way, and it was great. And the dad ended up being a mentor, right? Because he owns all of this commercial real estate in town. And that's how I bought my building, was because, I was like, hey, Mark, like, walk me through this. Like, here's what I want to do. And was scared to death. I'd never bought a $6 million building before. And he was the one that told me that. He was like what I use now. He's like, when you're laying on your deathbed, are you going to be worried about the money in your bank account? Or are you going to be worried that you live life the way you want to live life? I was like, fuck, I'm buying this building. So, those are the kind of relationships that thankfully I still have, and I'm still close with them. And, they ended up being very successful, thank God. But I just learned so much through those processes.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a really good, I think most business owners, like aside from just marijuana stuff, they think like the first thing to do is like, let's open an office.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let me start a business tomorrow, and then let's open a space and let's go lease a space for a few years.
Yep.
Before you're even up and running.
Yeah.
Right. And that was more old school thinking.
Yeah.
But I think still to this day, I still see people doing that. And I'm like, you don't have any employees. You don't need an office.
Yeah, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Go to a workspace or like a WeWork.
Bro, Paul and I rented a single office at Barrister Suites, you know, like the single whatever. Because they provide a conference room, they provide a secretary. And then when we grew, we got another Barrister Suites.
Right.
By the time we were done, we had like half the wing at Barrister Suites where they're like, you guys can't stay here. And then we went and got an office. But it was like, that was the easiest play, right? It was a mitigation play.
And a cheap play.
Like a cheap play.
Yeah. They'll sublease your shit right away. Like you don't have to, like you'll be like, hey, I don't need this office anymore. They'll say, okay, well, you sign your lease. Either you pay to get out of it, or we'll just try to sublet it for you in the meantime, but you still have to pay for it. Okay, cool. Yeah. No problem.
And you're watching right now downtown with the occupancy rate of like 30%, how many businesses are just eating crow because they locked in stuff that they shouldn't have locked in.
Yeah. I went to a mastermind yesterday. It was on 8th and Broadway, or on 8th. But it was like, I can't believe the homeless camps that are there. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, normally when I go down there, it's like for dinner. So it's at nighttime in like Little Italy or nicer spots. And I was driving down. I was like, holy fuck.
It's bad.
This is bad.
It's really
like,
bad.
I don't understand how no one can do anything about that kind of stuff.
It's not good. Yeah.
I don't know if we can include that in the podcast, but I'll say it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one that talks shit and tags Todd Gloria on all my posts, so I don't really care.
Yeah. No, I don't care either.
It's bad. And it's sad because I've lived here for 20 years and I've never seen the city like this. Yeah. And we were heading in a really good direction in East Village and in those areas, and we've taken so many steps back. And I don't care what anyone says, it is a policy situation. Like they need to change their policy, and I think that they've started to wake up to it in the last month. They've passed no camping laws, and they're going to start to allegedly enforce them. We shall see. But it's not fair to businesses. It's not fair to residents. It's definitely not fair to kids that are down there going to school.
It's not safe.
It's not safe.
No.
It's not okay. And so hopefully we wake up to it, because this is an amazing city and it deserves more.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was looking, like when I was walking to the guy's building, I was noticing like a bunch of restaurants that were like boarded up, like no one was renting those spaces. I mean, that kind of stuff is just like, it's really sad. And then obviously homeless people are like washing their hair in like the porta potty, like little fountain thing. But obviously the city put those fountains there.
Yeah.
Like, because they're the porta potty fountains, like the water fountains that you would put at like a Delmar Fair or something.
And I get it. Like, they're people, and I'm not saying I'm not compassionate to the people that are on the street. I am. There needs to be solutions. I totally am not saying that there doesn't need to be an answer for that. But as a business owner, I know the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. And I can't imagine people that have put their whole lives into something, and then that's surrounding their entire business, and their business crumbles in front of them. Like, that is a devastating thing that a lot of people will never emotionally recover from, and I don't think people understand.
And I think it's weird because those are the people who are actually paying their taxes.
1,000%. And the people that are making society what society is.
Providing more jobs.
Yeah. So there's both ends, but unfortunately the voices that have been the loudest have been the activists for the people in the streets. And I've been kind of the opposite, where I'm like, hey, we need to definitely pay attention to this, and there's a mental health crisis, but let's not forget about the people that are living in this, paying rent, paying leases, trying to operate businesses. Like, that needs to be focused on and concentrated on.
Yeah. I was a little uncomfortable, like walking the streets when I was trying to go, and the guy lives in a penthouse, like on whatever building it was on Broadway.
Yeah.
And where I parked, I was like trying to walk around the building because I didn't know which entrance it was, because I'd never been there. And I was uncomfortable walking the streets, and I'm like, should not feel like that being like downtown. Like,
I'm from Idaho, so I'm like, I've been around it my life, but I got my concealed carry in 2001.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a lot of places I just don't feel safe anymore.
Yeah.
And I had my good friend who's an ex-Navy SEAL who does home tactical training, train me for 6 months. And I'm like,
awesome.
Because the world is a different place right now, and I'm not going to be the guy that's sitting flat-footed.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know. I just bought my fiance a new watch, so I was at the dealership getting it resized, and the guy was talking to me, and we were kind of talking about like traveling and different stuff, and like he was talking about like different robberies and people getting pickpocketed, and this is at UTC, and he's like, dude, I've heard stories of like people like getting pickpocketed here, like at gunpoint.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, in LA, I've heard it's bad.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's just, the world's crazy.
The world is a crazy place, and it's changing very quick. And I have a lot of police officer friends and 911 dispatcher friends, and they're like, listen, like if shit goes down, we ain't coming to help. Like there's just only so much we can do right now. We're 198 officers, I think, understaffed. So just know the government's not going to be there to protect you or save you. That's not the way this world works anymore. You better protect yourself, save yourself, be there for your family. Be ready for it.
Have you seen the shoplifter stuff, the LA stuff where it's like not a crime anymore?
It's crazy.
And,
and employees aren't even allowed to do anything, so it's
anything.
now just like a full-on free-for-all.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's not society.
No, it's
weird. It's not civil. Like
animals.
It is. We're watching society crumble before our eyes, and it's really sad. And for someone who wants to have a kid, I'm like, fuck, what is this world going to look like 10 years from now if we don't, if the pendulum doesn't swing back?
Right.
Normally the pendulum swings back, right? Like normally it gets to a place where people are like, enough's enough. We got to do something about this. But I'm surprised it's gotten as far as it has.
Yeah. It's scary. We can go down a rabbit hole. I can keep talking about this stuff too. Let's finish up. What's your favorite book?
Oh, it's so tough.
How many books do you read a year, by the way? Do you read or do you listen? Okay, good for you.
I'm like a highlighter. Like I'll
Mentally?
I'll go through with like an actual highlighter. So I like read and highlight.
I think I'm at book 27 so far this year.
Damn, you're beating me. I'm probably
I'm also a listener.
Okay, so you can time and a half,
so
two times.
Yeah, so like there's the book on or your app on your phone. You can. So I have like a reading goal. So I'm 196 days straight, and then I think this is 14, 21, 24.
Damn. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, I think is a must read. Right, like that's just like one of my like.
Writing these down, by the way.
That I give out to everyone. I think that's a really good book.
48 Laws of what?
48 Laws of Power. I just think it's a good book just to understand the way that like life works, human nature. I read a lot of like history shit, right? So those aren't overly interesting to people. Life That Matters to Life That Matters, probably my most influential book that I've ever read.
Yeah, I couldn't find that anywhere.
I have a copy for you.
Oh,
I'll say, of course. Trying to actually give you something of substance, some bull.
It's all good. It's up to 48 Laws.
48 Laws of Power is probably my go-to giveaway book. Trying to think of the name right now. Unexamined Soul is what I want to say, but it's not what it is. It's
you can look. Yeah, one of my favorites this year was the Dean Graziosi one.
Never read it.
He just talked a lot about like being grateful and like giving gratitude, and I took a lot out of that because sometimes we forget. Relationships and business partners and things like that. Go ahead.
Untethered Soul.
Untethered Soul.
I don't know why I said unexamined. If you haven't read The Untethered Soul, it's a book that they should make every high school kid read. The Untethered Soul. I just think that it's a really, really good life book. And I try to read it every year. I probably haven't read it in the last 2, but I probably have 7 copies of it in my office, and I just give it out left and right. But The Untethered Soul is like a must read for everyone. They should make every senior in high school read it. Instead, they're reading bullshit. But that is an Untethered Soul. It would be probably my number 1 life-changing recommendation book.
I like it. I'm going to definitely look into it. Yeah, The Millionaire Success Habits from Dean Graziosi. I get asked questions because I screenshot my like reading goals all the time. People always ask, like, what was the most impactful book this year so far? And that one was because it talks a lot about gratitude and about giving back. And, sometimes when you have partners and attorneys in your office and they're doing well or just texting someone and just say, hey, man, I'm grateful for you. Yeah. Or, hey, babe, I love you. Yep. Thanks for everything you do for me. And like those little small things go a long way for a lot of people. Yeah. And it actually truly does matter because no one does it. Like no one's ever done that for me. Right. But like I'll do that to my fiance or my business partners or like friends or whatever because of that book, because I know how it feels to even just say it to other people. And I'm sure like if you were to get that reciprocated, you'd be like, oh man, that was really nice of them.
Yeah. 100%. So, yeah. No, I will definitely pick up that. And then Principles, Ray Dalio. Have you read that?
Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah.
Great book.
Yeah, I've tried to stay like the finance books this year has been a little tough just because I'm just a little different place with like my lane of finances and stuff. I think Ray Dalio is a lot, like he talks a lot about economics and, cost averaging. I know
his new shit's
yeah, it's scary.
Like his new stuff is like where the world's going. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I listened to a few of the clips and I was just like, I don't know if I want stuff that's like, because I do it every morning for a half hour.
Yep.
Right. That's like the first thing that I do. Put my headphones in, listens for a half hour, and like gets my day started. But if most of the time it's all positive stuff, all stuff that's like uplifting, that makes my mind think, that just gets me like ready to go for the day.
Yeah.
And that's why
I listen to podcasts like that. For whatever reason, the books that I read are like a little like
dark.
Yeah, they are. They're like, oh, this world's fucked up and this is the real. Like,
right.
They're like the real history books, right? Like we're taught fake history. We're never taught what's really, how it really happens.
Sure.
Like, now, Creature from Jekyll Island, how the Federal Reserve was really created, what the federal central banking system really is, like how that shit went down. Creature from Jekyll Island is amazing. Great book. And when you say gratitude, I had a guy that follows me on Instagram that somehow I said something that like he liked and inspired him. He went and got the author somehow to sign a copy and write a note for me and brought it by my office and was like, hey, I want you to have this. Like, so
cool.
That's like, I'm like, what? Like you went out of your way to do that for me? I don't even know. I've never even met you, man. Like crazy.
That's the power of social media. We were talking about podcasting and stuff, content and social media. I mean, that's like the power of it. We can switch into that. Like that's why I started doing it. Cause I was like, one, the reach and clientele. Yeah. But then it got to like a bigger purpose of like, how can I teach people how to do what I'm doing and give them the advantage of like the learning curve that took me, however.
You do that because you had a mentor that cut that for you. So if you feel like that you need to give that back too, because you're like, I was given a gift and I need to be able to give that gift as well.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's freedom. Like you now have financial freedom for your family for years to come. And that is a gift.
Yeah. And it's hard though, because it does get exhausting.
For sure.
I have a lot of friends and people who call me all the time and ask for advice and stuff like that. And it gets to a point where I'm like, you've asked me a lot of the same questions, but you haven't, like, what have you done since I've talked to you the last time? Because, I pay for coaching and I've paid for shit to like learn the other advantages too. Like the mentor can only get you so far.
For sure.
You got to take action.
For sure.
You got to figure some stuff out on your own and learn through someone else as well that are doing it at a high level. But if you're not going to take any action, you're not going to do anything about it, like stop asking me about it.
1,000% agree. Yeah. And I'll usually give people 2 times. And then if you haven't done shit, sorry. Yeah. Like you got to go. You got to go pick someone else's brain.
Exactly. What's the best we'll finish with this. What's the best advice you have for entrepreneurs?
Don't chase money. It's been my motto for a while now. Like chase happiness. Figure out what you could do without getting paid and build your life and your business around that. And usually money is going to come. My uncle and father owned a trucking company. That's what my family business was. My uncle was middle. Not a happy person in the trucking business. Just was never fulfilling. And I remember he told me that at a young age, and for whatever reason, it stuck with me. And this dude had the opportunity he's like me, he loves dogs. He had an opportunity to, later on in his life, to open up a dog hotel. And he basically owns a dog hotel, and it's like a big ranch, and people drop off their dogs for the weekends, for the days. And he is the happiest I've ever seen him in his life, and he's making so much money, crushing it, doing this. And it was just a testament to me of like, if you find the things that you love and you build your life around, like you're going to be successful, but more important than that, you're also going to be happy. And if you're just chasing money and just going like, oh, I'm going to be an attorney because I'm going to make a bunch of money. Well, there's a lot of miserable attorneys that are alcoholics and addicted to drugs, and it's because they chase things that they weren't passionate about, and then they find themselves in a place where they're like, I
had the hardest time finding my why when I was younger, in my 20s. Like everyone always said, like all the coaching programs and all the mentorships, they're always like, find your why, and that's what you'll work for. Yeah. And I never could figure it out because I didn't have kids. I was always like, in and out of relationships, but I was, in your 20s, you're not really concerned anything really. You just, women and money is what you're thinking about, like as guys. And I had always had the hardest time finding like what was my, and to this day it's freedom. I finally figured it out. Like once I got to a point where
doing what you want to do
on my time. It took me a long time to find that. And once I finally like had the ability, and maybe it was like once I got a little bit more financially free and financially stable, it got me to the point where I don't need the business. Like I just want to be able to say no, or I want to, be able to go and travel there or go do this and not be worried about anything else. Where you see people who can't do that stuff, and the corporate life has a thumb on top of you. And that's a miserable place to be.
Yep.
You're in a box and so that's where I finally figured out like
freedom and choices.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people, if you break it down, that's where it comes down to. It's just figuring out what vehicle it is that's going to get you there, right? Like, that's a hard part for a lot of people.
Yeah.
They get stuck in these ruts and they don't know how to climb out of them.
And they look at other opportunities, right? They think that like, oh, their job isn't paying enough, and I'm seeing this person do this, and I want to do that. But you have a good job, but you could just work harder to make more active
100%.
Income and not have to go do a vending machine or, you know, a credit card machine or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, you just work on your active income and get that up, and then you'll get to a point where you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like
1,000%.
Yeah, so.
And life is short.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things, people need to be self-analytical. Break down the shit that really makes you happy. Like, spend some time. It's not like it's just going to be something that it's just going to come to you. You have to, like, whether it's meditation or I'm a big float tank. Like, I love, you know, that's where I found a lot of my answers was I'd sit in a float tank with nothing else to do and no other, you know, nothing to look at, nothing to hear. And I'd really sit and think about what do I want my life to look like. And I think you really have to start live with some intention.
Sure.
So few people do that.
Yeah. I think when I started traveling more, like in my early 30s, when I had the ability to travel a little bit more often. In my 20s, I, obviously stayed in town and like couldn't afford to do much. But once I had the ability to travel, vacations were like my escape to think about life.
Yeah.
And I have my best ideas on vacation. And I sit, like, my fiance will be in the room and I'll be down at the pool at like 9 a.m. I'll be on my notes on my phone and I'll just be sitting there because no one's there, peaceful, right? Before I have a cocktail or anything else in me, like I'm just sitting there and I just am able to like in my thoughts because I'm not thinking. So that's where I finally like clicked to me that I'm like, this is what I live for.
Yeah.
So cool, man. I was excited to do this actually. I watched
Thank you
first.
for having me on, man. This has been, I do a lot of podcasts. This has actually been, you know, and I don't just say this, no lip service, one of my more favorite ones because it's just a real conversation about life.
Yeah.
Like, I think you and I have a lot in common about 100%. Just like how we live and the way that we view the world and the way that life should live. And I just hope that I'm very lucky that I live a happy life every day, and that's really the only thing that I like to try to convey to people is I just want people to be happy. I think the world would be a much better place if people were trying to chase happiness.
Yeah.
Just being in a better place.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on.
Appreciate it.